Hello and welcome to Cannes Lion 2025. This is the first of a video interview series that Transform will be producing out here as we try to find the most interesting creatives on the Croisette. And one of those is Philip Davies, who's very kindly joined me today. Now, Philip, there's a couple of issues in particular that I wanted to talk to you about, and those sort of pertain to that of simplicity and AI, which are very close to your heart. Simplicity is something that is very much at the heart of Siegel Gale. Putting that to the side for a moment, perhaps you could tell me a little bit about AI, because I see a lot of creatives around here are panicking a little bit in some ways. They don't necessarily see all the positives that perhaps you see in the AI revolution. If you were to pitch AI for the brand design space, what would that kind of look like? What's your message to these people?
Okay, Jack, it's a good question. And by the way, I don't know if AI is close to my heart or not, but that's maybe another question. Simplicity certainly is. It's funny, given that we're in Cannes, and the whole AI subject and it is a dominant subject here. It's actually quite amazing. It reminds me a little bit of that quote by Oscar Wilde, which is like when bankers get together, they talk about art. When artists get together, they talk about money. And Cannes used to be the creative place, and now you find creatives come here and talk about technology, and technologists come here and talk about creativity. And that's what we're seeing. So I think it's, yes, it's the predominant subject, and it's something which is obviously on everyone's mind because it's actually quite exciting. There is a fear of it, obviously, and our fears are often irrational. Whether it be whatever it might be, spiders or heights or public speaking, or getting interviewed by you, Jack, sometimes. That's it. But I think you just have to figure out, okay, how can it work for me? And we at Siegel Gale are finding ways that we can use AI really effectively, whether it be, the obvious things like it's like having an infinite number of interns working with you, or it's just a really cool way to mash things together and see what happens. And that sounds random, I realise, but creativity is about getting two things that weren't previously related and bring them together and create this third thing that is more interesting those two things individually could ever be. So I think when you start to work with AI in a way that is complementary to what you do, rather than feeling you're in competition with it, I think you can really get somewhere fast. It's accelerating a lot of what we do, obviously, but it's also opening up other ways that we can use it as a creative tool. So we, for the most part, find it helpful. We're cautious about it, like everybody else is, but we're still in business as people. And ultimately, I think we are also in the relationship business, and that relationship business is based on our judgment that clients trust, the discernment that we bring to assignments, and the way that we can really, really orientate that and make those right judgment calls at the right time for the right brand in the right market. So, it's super useful. But it mustn't become super dominant of how we're thinking, because ultimately we're flesh and blood as well, and we want to talk to people who are also flesh and blood, not machines.
Absolutely. So in a practical sense, when we're talking about the designers, the strategists at Siegel Gale, it's kind of being used as a research tool right now. Is that the right way of looking at it right now?
I think that's half the story. Yeah, I think research is one part of it, and you can cover a lot of ground. And we know that before a client comes to us, they've fed that question into an AI machine. They've gone to ChatGPT and said the same thing they're going to say to us the next week or so forth. And you can get a pretty elegant piece of strategy out of it now, but it's not necessarily perfect, it's not necessarily going to be bespoke, it's not necessarily going to be right. But it's finding that final element to it, which is really, really positive. It's that, like anything in life, it's that extra 5% that makes all the difference. And that is going to be the where you get the expertise, where you get people that really, really have done this before, and they really, really understand how everything comes together in a coordinated fashion. So I would say it's not something to be fearful of. But we're using it then. So yes, we're using it in research, but then we're using it to, as I said, in a kind of experimental creative capacity as well, where you can feed things in, see what happens. It's a very fast way to experiment. It's a very, very easy way to just to ideate on things with an interesting partner as well. So yeah, it's good. So yes, you're right. Those are the two areas we're working on it. But not just research. There is also areas where we put sort of nascent ideas in there, see what comes out, just so we know what not to do as well as what to do. Actually, in some ways.
Well, you're of course someone that champions simplicity. So when we consider this new age of AI, perhaps adding a layer of complexity on top of things, how does that change things? Does it cause some concern in that you have this overall mission of creating fantastic, simple brands? What do you think there?
Well, I think it's always been a complicated world. It's been a complicated world since the dawn of time, and I think there's always things that are going to be, whether that be through the industrial age or through whether it be the Renaissance. There's always new things, new techniques that are coming through that people need to adapt to, learn with, and use. So I think in that respect, having something which we can use in ways that makes developing brands simpler, that's a really, really powerful thing. Depending what acronym you like. VUCA is a pretty interesting way to describe the world in which we're living now. Obviously it comes from the US Marines, but it's about being volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And you think about almost any situation, it has degrees of each of those things going on at the same time. So our role is often to find the smoothest and the simplest and the sharpest way to cut through all that, so it really has resonance and meaning, but also absolute relevance too. And I think it's that relevance point which in actual fact really nails the simplicity element combined with what technology can do. You need that human element to understand that it's actually really going to be relevant too.
And I think simplicity is a tricky thing to create if you're, particularly if you're a legacy brand or a large brand. Are there certain common mistakes you see business leaders or creatives within those kind of larger brands when they try to simplify?
Jack, that's a really good question. Because I think it goes to the heart of what simplicity is and what sometimes people think if they are going to simplify what they do. Simplicity isn't about reductionism. It's not necessarily about just flattening things out. It's not like a John Pawson piece of architecture. It is actually focus. It's figuring out what is the most important thing we're going to do. What is that one thing someone's going to remember you for? There's that lovely phrase. Brand is what people say about you when they leave the room. It's that one searing thought that you want to maybe make sure is residing in someone's mind, and then that governs the experience going forward as well. So I think sometimes organizations, in an effort to simplify, they remove a lot of richness, and then simple isn't simple, but it's basic. And no one wants to have something which is just basic because it's disappointing, and it's just a commodity. So you want to make sure you can simplify, but with keeping the magic in there, because simplicity is magic when it works really well.
And are there any present-day brands you look at and think, wow, they've been able to utilize simplicity so well, other than your clients, of course?
So I'm going to find it really difficult to answer that question, but because you just told me I can't use my clients. But there's one that I do look at quite a bit, and it may surprise you, but I'm going to look at a nation brand, which is the Singapore nation brand. Their challenge in their own evolution as a transformative nation was to appeal equally to enterprise, education and tourism, and put all of those strands under one brand. And you find often countries that have a tourist board, they have this board, they have that board. They've actually managed to bring together all those different initiatives, campaigns sometimes, or agencies, or divisions, or government entities under one brand. And that Singapore brand has been absolutely brilliantly done. I think they call it the impossible story, and they turn it into something really powerful. And I think everybody would agree, Singapore is a case study in how to do a nation brand really, really well. It knows itself really well, and it knows what it's doing and why. And that's just a really powerful thing. So I would say they've got a really simple story. I like to use that one as well because it's simple, but there's a whole lot of engineering behind it. Yeah. And I think that it's so much easier to complicate. But to simplify it takes hard work. So when you're talking about a nation or a city, to actually simplify that down to one thought and one image and one identity, something that is really memorable, that takes some doing. So whoever did that, bravo to them. It's really good. It's simple at work. It really is.
Absolutely. And while I have you here, I think it'd be remiss of me not to bring up the Omnicom IPG merger. Is this something that you think might strategically change things at Siegel and Gale? Might change positioning, something like that?
I'm sure it's going to be great, Jack.
There you have it. Philip, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
Cheers.